What impact is AI having on us as Muslims today?
Well, AI is already shaping the lives of everyone on the planet, directly or indirectly, whether we are aware of it or not, including Muslims. Um, so we could look at the impacts of AI from three different lenses: the good, the dangerous, and the disturbing.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Matters, the show that discusses Islamic issues. Today, our guest is Dr. Fahim Mohammed, and our topic we will be discussing the use of AI in learning Islam. Dr. Fahim, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for having me again.
Walaikum assalam. Okay, we'll start off with what is AI exactly?
Well, let's start with the basics. When we hear artificial intelligence, we often think of robots or sci fi movies and so on. But the reality is, AI is simply a machine's ability to mimic human intelligence. AI is a pattern recognition machine. We feed it massive amounts of data, whether it's text, images, sound, and so on. And it finds the statistical relationships within that data to give you the best next word in its response. So it takes in essence, a probability analysis and it says this is the best response to frame in terms of order of words from the question that is asked or the prompt. So when you ask ChatGPT a question, it's not really thinking in the human sense. It's calculating what's the next word, next best word, the best next word based on the human conversations that it has stored in its database.
Great, and this is available to all of us now, quite easily. So I guess everyone will be using it.
It is. It is, in fact, a excellent tool for processing information that is already stored in its model. It could summarize thousands of pages of tafsir, for example, in the context of our conversation today. Or it could translate stuff from Arabic to English or vice versa instantly. But it does not understand meaning. It certainly doesn't have a consciousness. And while it could deliver facts, it can't replicate the human heart or the spiritual connection. It's simply a mirror, if you will, of our data being reflected back to us in terms of responses.
Great. Okay, is AI halal or haram?
In Islam, we don't usually label the tools as haram or halal. We look more at the intentions and the actions around it. So if you think about a knife, for example, a knife could be used by a surgeon to save a life, or it could be used by a killer to take a life. The knife itself is not the haram or halal element, it's the actions that we undertake using the tool that we have. So AI is exactly that. It's a tool as a technology. And the question becomes not whether AI itself is halal or haram, but what are we using it for and what is our intention behind it? And that's where you get the lawfulness or not associated with the tool. If you use AI to cheat on your exams or generate deepfakes to ruin somebody's reputation or to spread information and so on, then yes, that usage is clearly haram because it involves deception, it involves injustice, maybe oppression, and Islam speaks directly against that. But if you use AI to transcribe Quranic recitations or to compare Quranic verses or a hadith and so on, then you could be doing a lot of good for yourself, for those you transmit that information to, and so on. So it's not just halal, it could be even considered a form of sadqa jariyah moving forward. The one thing, from my understanding, the one thing that the scholars agree on is that the user bears the full responsibility for the tools. So that you can't blame the algorithm for a mistake or ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever. You are the morally accountable agent as the user. And AI is permissible as long as it doesn't lead you into sin or involves you doing anything forbidden, like shirk or gambling. Or as long, I would venture, as it doesn't replace your personal spiritual effort with a shortcut. So, halal by default, ibaha in Islamic legal terms, but your niyyah and your actions determine its ultimate ruling in your life.
Yeah, clearly your intentions. Great. That clears that up. What impact is AI having on us as Muslims today?
Well, AI is already shaping the lives of everyone on the planet, directly or indirectly, whether we are aware of it or not, including Muslims. So we could look at the impacts of AI from three different lenses: the good, the dangerous, and the disturbing, right? In terms of good, AI has democratized information and Islamic knowledge as one subset of information. Muslim in rural Indonesia could access complex fiqh rulings, for example, in their own dialect and be able to digest that. Students could generate, as I mentioned before, comparative studies of Quranic verses and ahadith and what the deeper implications are. Even a AI-powered Arabic reader could help you correct your tajweed in real time. You understand? So this is unprecedented access. It's like having a team of scholars on speed dial, and that in itself is a blessing. Right? But there's a danger, not religion related, but a danger in using the technology across the board. On one part, we are outsourcing our thinking to machines, and we are more and more depending on the machine to give us the answer instead of us figuring it out using the tools that are available. So instead of grappling with a difficult verse, trying to find deeper insight, or sitting with a teacher, we ask some AI platform for a quick answer and we move on. This weakens our tabadur, our contemplation, which the Quran repeatedly asks. Would you not ponder? Would you not reflect, etc., etc.? So if we stop struggling with that contemplation, we risk not internalizing it. And we rely on accessing the information as and when we need it. So we have access to information, but we're losing the wisdom side of it. And we become passive users of the narrative dictated by the platform than we are active seekers using the best available means. Yeah. So that's a bit of a danger society-wide across the board. And then there's the unsettling part, if you will. I believe the best catch-all label would be the Big Brother dimension. Big Brother is watching. Every question you ask AI is data that it keeps and uses. Every search, every personal struggle, every issue that you're wrestling with is information that is captured, and that's logged, it's analyzed, and it could be used for monetization on one part or for surveillance on the other. And whereas your inquiry might be genuine and you're searching for answers on this spiritual journey that you're on, it seems to be a risk of compromising our privacy, which Islam protects for the sake of convenience. And that, to me, is a dangerous thing. It's like putting a camera on our minds or our thoughts. and having it available for others to see. Um, Fundamentally, it begs the question: are we using it as a tool, or is it using us as a data gathering? And that, of course, depends on how we use it to some extent.
Quite interesting. Okay, what about the quality of responses we get from AI? Is it reliable information?
God, I hope so. The thing about it is, and especially in the context of this Islamic conversation, it would become really important in matters of deen, a really important question to answer in matters of deen. AI is not a scholar, and it will never be. And the sooner we internalize that and recognize that, is the safer we can protect or safeguard our faith. Right? Um, Remember, what it is a pattern recognition algorithm, right? A machine. So it does not know truth from falsehood. It does not um, consider context in rulings or religious rulings and so on. It predicts words based on possibilities, and as a result, it draws on the available data as a black and white thing. It lacks the human dimension of what scholars would typically have, which is humility and fear in representing Allah and Allah's message. So, as a machine, it does not have that. It looks at the fatwas, it looks at the blog posts, it looks at every academic paper, it looks at religious text, and also it looks at any and every misinformed rant that is stored in its data to distill and predict what the best possible response should be. And that's a dangerous thing. The result would sound confident, it would sound sure, authoritative, even, and fluent, but it could be absolutely wrong.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Yeah, and because it's fluent and because it's authoritative, we tend to trust it. But we might be, in essence, led down a path, the opposite path from Islam. That's the risk, really. So researchers, I mean, is recognized. People call it the hallucination problem in generative AI. And we need to be mindful of that. It could invent a hadith, for example, that doesn't exist. You had so many cases in law where it invented cases that doesn't exist, and the judge had to rebuke the lawyers for referencing those. Or it could cite a verse with a different interpretation that we don't accept, or that it was put out as misinformation, and give you a ruling that is contradictory to what the scholars uphold. And of course, all of this in perfect Arabic. You know?
So we really have to be mindful of these things and be a little careful.
Yes, especially, you see, when it comes to matters of Aqidah or creed, when it comes to matters of fiqh or jurisprudence, is not just unreliable, it's also dangerous. Because of the hallucination problem. You wouldn't trust a robot to do surgery on you unsupervised. And as your physical self, right, is more important with your deen and with your soul. Why would you trust a statistics engine to guide your soul? So the best thing to do is to use it as a finder of information, a library index, if you will, to tell you which book to reference, but not as the authoritative guide in and of itself. Get the sources, but always check and cross-check, especially with persons who have that isnad, who have that authorization and transmission chain, because they would bring to bear the responsibilities that come with that in their response. AI has no isnad, it has no chain, and it has no conscience, and it has no soul. So that it's a good tool, but you can't really accept it as a teacher. Yeah.
Is the AI generated religious answers lack barakah or spiritual lessons?
Any barakah in it? Yes, absolutely. It can, but I mean, the one question becomes, well, what is barakah exactly? Is people see it as magic? Yeah, you sprinkle it over a thing and and it yields more, right? But barakah, from my understanding, is a divine blessing that brings depth, growth, transformation, based on effort and initiative. Um, so a small amount of sincere knowledge could transform what you do and how you do it in a meaningful way, while a large volume of data and information could not have any impact and leave you spiritually empty. You follow?
Yep.
So that AI doesn't have in itself, it does not have the source of barakah um, intrinsically. Is just a communication mechanism to bring the information to you. What you are seeking by way of knowledge and why you're seeking it and the intentions around it or the uses for it is what would make the difference, really. And that's where the barakah would come in, you know. Um,
Comes to the intention again, what you're using it for.
well, yeah, correct. Is use of the tool itself, yeah. What are we hoping to gain out of it? Um, but I would add, so things like um, the contemplation, the instruction, and contextualization that you would get from a teacher, you cannot get from AI. It does not have that um, consciousness, if you will. Teachers would care for their students and their students' well-being and development. AI doesn't have that. If anything, it delivers a cool, statistically probable response um, as a string of text. You understand? So, so yeah. At the end of the day, I guess there's the potential for barakah, but it really depends on you, the user, and why you're using it. AI makes it easier to access the information, but um, I think your efforts and the drivers of it will determine the barakah of it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, intention again. So, what does this mean for persons wanting to know more about Islam and learning Islam?
At the core of it, what we want is for people to fundamentally build a closer relationship directly with their God. And I think Islam is the only system that allows for that carte blanche. Yeah? You could pray to God directly 5 times a day. He is closer to you individually than your jugular vein and so on. So that fundamentally, that's what we would want everybody to build. Yeah, across the board, one God and a close relationship with Him. For someone wanting to learn about Islam, whether they're reverts, new Muslims, non-Muslims generally inquiring, genuinely inquiring, um, or someone who wants to know more, seek deeper knowledge, and so on. AI is a powerful tool with unprecedented access to data, and it also is a potential trap. You could access data in your language from wherever you are once you have an internet connection. So that's fantastic. And you could do that 24/7. And you could delve deeper and get explanations and so on. and those things are genuinely transformative. Yeah, you could actually learn a lot, change your thinking and the life you live based on it. It's like an encyclopedia 24/7, right? Um, so for beginners who need access to information at a preliminary level, AI is a gift, and it's that. The potential trap is that people would be tempted to stop there, and they mistake the responses that they get for guidance, and that is where it gets dangerous, because it's not their teacher, it's not their sheikh, it's not their guide. Before AI, we used to hear about Mufti Google as the authority to provide information, but teaching in Islam and teaching Islam really is about nurturing your soul, to reflect the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to build a closer relationship with Him. And AI can't do that. It doesn't operate in that realm. To accommodate your personal struggles and indecision and basis for inquiry with empathy, or in any way to make the connection come alive. Yeah. So it's a torchlight. It shines light on an issue. It gives you a good indicator at a glance, but it really should be just a signpost, if you will, showing you where to look, as opposed to that being the destination in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a nice way of looking at it. Okay, now what about parents now? What should they keep in mind if their children rely on AI? That's a new world out there now.
Well, I mean, we at our age would have grown up without AI and learned to use AI along the way. For children today, they're growing up in a world that is AI driven and AI enabled already. This is life as they know it. So for parents, it's a blessing and a responsibility at the same time. So your child could ask ChatGPT about Allah, about why we pray, difficult life questions, and so on. And AI will give them the answer, maybe even a theologically correct one, maybe. But it can't replace the response that a parent would give, or the feelings that a parent would envelop in their response, and the concern and so on. Or the gravity of the question that is being asked. It can't communicate that. And that is where parents have a fantastic opportunity to build a relationship with their children that is far stronger than any algorithm can build, because there's an emotional connection. And machines can't replicate that yet. So until they can, there's a huge opportunity for parents. The second thing is that I think parents would want to teach their children computer and information literacy from an Islamic viewpoint, so that they would be able to ingrain what are Islamic values and where AI information goes misaligned to that. I think that's an important dimension. So what it would include as children grow up is showing them how to verify answers, which sources of references to consult, who are the individuals behind these source references, who was Abu Hanifa, who was Al-Bani, etc. So that's something that I think parents would do well to instill in children. And then there's another dimension entirely, which is the spiritual development of the children. And if they know to use AI to answer every Islamic question instantly, they lose that process of curiosity. And it's not just Islamic, children on the whole would lose that process of imagination and creativity and curiosity or reflection or discovery or the process of searching for answer instead of having it available instantaneously. So those are fundamental cognitive tools that we risk our children not having if they just grow up in an unstructured, unsupervised, AI powered reality.
So nowadays it's more important for parents to be closer to the children and monitor what's going on.
Yeah. And this was, for example, the example of the Prophet, peace be on him. He taught people to live the Quran on one part, but with children, he was as playful and he was as engaging and caring and loving and so on as so on. So what we need is not the perfect algorithm from an Islamic viewpoint, or that gives responses from an Islamic viewpoint. What we need is parents who are present and knowledgeable, and with that, they could help nurture a much more powerful individual as a response.
Okay, well now, after all that, do you recommend using AI for seeking Islamic knowledge?
Well, after everything I said previously, you'd probably expect me to say no, stay away from that. That's trouble. But that's not my answer. Yes, it is a powerful tool that people have access to, but it should be used within very defined boundaries or to very limited extents, or used with caution, if you will. Um, it's a really, really good starting point, but it's not the be all and end all of the conversation. So it tells you where to look, but it does not replace actually reading the text or conversing with your teacher, right? Because they would bring a whole other dimension, uh, consciousness dimension to a cognitive process that AI cannot. And that's something that people need to be mindful for. Use AI for factual, non-rulings based information, of course. Yeah, get a better understanding. Find verses you vaguely remember or you heard in some khutbah on a Friday that you can't place. Get a quick translation. Understand the historical context of a surah. Basic definitions, etc. Those are low risk uses that are absolutely fine. There's very little danger in those use cases. But in matters of fiqh, in matters of akidah, in matters of personal spiritual development or guidance, anything where a wrong answer could lead you to sin or confusion, I think you need to limit the use and the influence of AI to a certain point. If anything, anything AI gives you, always verify it. At the very least, cross-check every AI response with a scholar or a text, a trusted text, or an institution. And if you cannot verify it, then you should not act on it. I'd venture saying that. If this is for matters of deen and faith and jurisprudence and so on. So use it as a starting point, use it as a complement, but not to replace traditional scholarship.
Yeah, and then children nowadays, with the technology, they will be into it, so you can't really tell them no. So we have to use it for good.
Yeah, and you know, how do I put this? At the end of the day, the aim is not to know Islam. The aim is to live Islam. Yeah, so that knowing it is one thing, but to live it, there's so much more than just a string of text in a sequence that may sound authoritative. Yeah, it goes deeper than that, and that's probably what people would do best to keep in mind.
And then this next question, well, you almost answered it. How do we verify if an Islamic ruling of fact given by AI is accurate?
Well, yeah, you're right. We kind of answered that
Yeah.
already. In essence, look at the response and check the source for the response. The beauty about AI is if you are not given a source, you could ask it to give you the source. Yeah, cite the source for this response or whatever, and it could point you to the authors or whatever. In some contexts, and you would always want to cross-check it with established works of hadith, direct Quranic translation, or the works of scholars, um, or you consult a living scholar, a human being, yeah, and you ask them. And today, beyond AI itself, the beauty of technology is everybody is reachable. It used to be that everybody was 5 or 8 contacts away from anybody else in the world. Well, today it's direct. Yeah, you just follow them on Twitter or X or Facebook or whatever, and you communicate with them directly. So we should build in to our approach on using AI. We should build in that discipline to be a doubting skeptic and pay close attention to the sources of reference.
How can an Islamic school benefit from AI without losing authenticity?
Well, so I mean, I spoke a lot about caution, but here is also an opportunity, right? AI can be a very good teaching assistant for an institution. So I could find the best learning methods or content forms to resonate with individual students individually. Some people would do better by discussion, some people by watching videos, some people by speaking to others, and so on. And I could tailor their experience to best fit their learning styles using AI without having to individually go in and do the work. So that's a huge opportunity. And that is before the student comes in, and while they are there, we could use AI to automate um, meaningful qualitative feedback on things like assessments, on things like development or errors or oversights and that sort of thing. Even looking at patterns of the questions that they ask and telling them, well, look, this points to uncertainty or insecurity in this aspect, and you need to move past this and so on. So it's a huge assistant opportunity to be an assistant to the teaching process and a tool within the teaching process. And with it, you'll find teachers could focus more on interacting with the students and imparting the knowledge or the spirit behind it. So that's one thing. There is an opportunity for schools to build their own AI models based on trusted Islamic sources of knowledge. The Yusuf Ali Quran, for example, translation, for example, or the accepted English translations of Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and so on. So that what you get is an AI model built exclusively on trusted content, yeah, source references, not open internet data with any and every opinion and perspective.
So
And
that could be done.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, it really is a function. The algorithms are pretty similar in terms of the statistical analysis that they undergo to predict the next best possible word in a sequence. So the model is the same. The data that it feeds on is what could vary. Yeah, and that's where you could um, select very specific sources of reference that you trust as the data on which that AI is trained. Yeah, yeah. And the third thing is it's an opportunity in schools to teach students to think critically and to be doubting skeptics in using AI. Not just relying on what is put up on the screen in front of you. And that could be brought about very easily. So if you will, teaching AI could help people to think more critically and more meaningfully.
Yeah, that's a good side of it.
Yep, if you teach it.
Critical thinking.
Yeah. But there are some things that need to be kept human, for Islam anyway. Memorization of the Quran, heartfelt dua, and so on. Knowing your intentions and acting on it or resolving to act on it. The adab and the relationship of a student and a teacher. These are things that AI can't replace. And these are human connections, if you will, that or essentially human experiences that we should preserve.
Yes.
In the interest of Muslim society.
Great. You come to a close. Is there any other dimension to AI that we need to keep in mind?
Well, we've spoken about the opportunity and the dangers associated with it. I think you'll want to emphasize, or it needs to be emphasized, that there is a moral and an ethical dimension to using technology on the whole and using AI in particular. Um, who's building the models? What are the data sets? Um, are the algorithms neutral or do they lead you to a specific agenda that is embedded in the code? Um, and of course, the studies indicate, or the papers coming out on this topic indicate that the latter is the case. There is a deliberate Western secular utilitarian paradigm embedded in the algorithms and the data. Yeah. Um, and those things have assumptions about truth. They have assumptions about morality. They have assumptions about human purpose and values and beliefs that may not be consistent with Islam. And we need to be mindful of that. We are using AI not as a neutral agent, but as a tool operating from one worldview. And is that something that we are conscious of, or are we just using it passively and deferring to its narrative? With the diffusion of AI in all these different jobs, I mean, you could write poetry in the style of Rumi or pen books in the style of Ibn Khaldun effortlessly, right? So you could mimic those patterns. But when it comes to human consciousness, that's not something we could replicate. And what I mean by that is if AI is doing all these things that humans can do, or AI can mimic all these things that humans have done, then it begs the question, well, what is it that we are supposed to be doing, you know? And the answer, I think, it boils down to ibadah. It boils down to worshiping Allah, and doing good works with sincere intention. Whatever that good work is that we choose to do, whether we do it through AI or not, um, that's something that remains essentially Muslim. Um, to do things for the pleasure of Allah and to do things conscious of His existence is something that the machines would not be able to replicate. So, so that's something to keep in mind. On the higher level, I spoke about a school building an AI model based on trusted sources and so on. If you extrapolate that at a Muslim civilization level, then the same question could be asked. Where are the Muslim AI developers building Islamic AI platforms that share a well-intentioned, if you permit the term, worldview on responses? Yeah. If we don't build our own, we continue to outsource to those who are building it, based on their values and beliefs and so on. And I'm not sure that that is sustainable. At some point, there's going to be conflict. If we are taking, for example, a material only paradigm, a materialistic paradigm, and we look at psychology, well, okay, so there's hormonal imbalances. It's a chemistry problem, and therefore the solution would be to alter the chemistry, take these tablets, and so on. But from an Islamic viewpoint, it might be that you're undergoing these things because your intentions were a certain way, or you didn't think a thing through, or you're not following the established sunnah practices and so on. So at some point the paradigms would come into tension, or there would be friction, and I think it creates an opportunity for us to look at an Islamic version of these tools that reinforce universal values, those things that we could all agree on. I mean, at the end of the day, AI is a tool, yes. It's an opportunity. It has some risk. It should be used within certain contexts, but not to replace what we have already come to understand. It's a mirror. The responses are a mirror to compiled data of human responses, and what might be the most popular or the dominant perspective might not be the right one from an Islamic viewpoint. So I think that's something we need to think about, and use the tool by all means, but use it with caution, with vision, and knowing that ultimately we are morally accountable and responsible for what we do with the information it provides. We can't escape that.
Well, you think as time goes on, AI will develop? Or it will get better, or it will...
Of course.
So we're going to be with it for a long time.
Of course. AI is...
It's going to be part of life then.
Yeah. So the internet was one, and then mobile devices was a next level up, based on internet powered mobile devices, and then AI is a next level up. The emphasis is on machines that could better serve individual needs, right? And AI is that step change where the machines now are able to use natural language processing and whatever not to craft a response that it thinks the human would appreciate. So searching for information has become less of an issue, or the menial tasks involved in creating or disseminating information are becoming more automated, yeah, that tool is definitely here to stay. But what and what it would be capable of would be a function of its physical reality, its code and statistics, um, running on a machine, and there are some things that it would not be able to ever to encapsulate. At least not in the foreseeable future. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Fahim, for enlightening us on this subject. It seems something that we will have the time to come. We have reached the end of this program. Thank you for watching Muslim Matters. Be sure to subscribe to our latest episodes and share with those who you think will need it to live or to gain a good life in this world and the next life.